Imagine this. You're a teenage girl sitting in your school counselor's office. The door clicks shut behind you. You trust this man, he's a priest after all. But within minutes, everything you thought you knew about safety, about the church, about the people meant to protect you, it all shatters. Now imagine that when you finally work up the courage to tell someone, a teacher, someone who actually cares, she goes missing. And 2 months later, her body turns up at a garbage dump with her skull caved in. This isn't fiction. This is the story of Sister Cathy Cesnik, and it's one of the most disturbing unsolved murders in American history. Because this case isn't just about one dead nun. It's about an entire system that chose to protect predators instead of children. And today, more than 50 years later, we're still uncovering just how deep that corruption goes. On November 7, 1969, Baltimore, Maryland, Sister Cathy Cesnik was 26 years old, bright-eyed, and beloved by everyone who knew her. She taught English and drama at Archbishop Keough High School, an all-girls Catholic school in Baltimore. By all accounts, she was the kind of teacher students actually wanted to talk to, the one who listened, who made you feel seen. That Friday evening, Cathy left her apartment around 7 p.m. She told her roommate, Sister Helen Russell Phillips, that she was going to buy a gift. Some accounts say it was for her sister's engagement, others say Christmas shopping. Either way, it was supposed to be a quick trip. She never came home. When Cathy didn't return that night, Sister Helen contacted the police. They found Cathy's car the next day, parked near her apartment complex. Her purse was inside. No signs of struggle. No signs of anything really. It was like she just vanished. Here's where it gets strange. The person leading the frantic search efforts? Father Jerry Koob. Now, officially, Koob was just a fellow priest at the school. But everyone close to the situation knew the truth. Jerry Koob and Cathy Cesnik were in love. In a relationship. Planning to leave the church together and get married. For weeks, the search continued. Family, friends, students, clergy, everyone was looking for Sister Cathy. But there was nothing. No leads, no witnesses, no trace. Then, on January 3, 1970, almost 2 months after she disappeared, a man walking his dog stumbled across something horrifying in a wooded area near a garbage dump in Lansdowne, just outside Baltimore. It was Sister Cathy's body. The medical examiner determined she died from blunt force trauma to the head. Someone had beaten her to death, likely within a day or two of her disappearance. Her body had been there the whole time, through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, while hundreds of people searched for her. And here's something that still bothers investigators to this day. Just 4 days after Cathy went missing, another young woman named Joyce Malecki disappeared from a shopping center less than 2 miles away. Her body was found on November 11th, strangled and dumped in a similar wooded area. 2 young women. Same area. Same time frame. Similar disposal methods. Joyce's murder is still unsolved too. Coincidence? A lot of people don't think so. But back in 1970, the police had no suspects, no witnesses, nothing solid to go on. The case went cold almost immediately. And that might have been the end of it, just another tragic, unsolved murder gathering dust in a police archive. Except it wasn't the end. Not even close. Let's jump forward 22 years. It's 1992. A woman named Jean Weiner, formerly Jean Hargadon, walks into a therapist's office. She's struggling, has been for years. Depression, anxiety, fragmented memories that don't quite make sense. And then, during therapy, something breaks loose. Memories come flooding back. Terrible, horrific memories that her mind had buried for decades. Jean had been a student at Archbishop Keough High School in the late 60s. And she remembered being sexually abused, repeatedly, violently, by the school's chaplain, Father Joseph Maskell. Now, understand something. Maskell wasn't just any priest. He was the school chaplain and guidance counselor. Students were sent to him for help, for counsel. He had keys to every room. He had authority. He had access. And according to Jean and other survivors who would eventually come forward, He used all of it to prey on teenage girls. Jean's memories were brutal. She described being called to Maskell's office, where he would abuse her. She talked about being taken to other locations, an apartment, a park. But the most chilling memory of all? Maskell taking her to see a dead body. Sister Cathy's body. According to Jean, this happened shortly after Cathy disappeared. Maskell drove her to a wooded area and showed her the body of her teacher, partially covered. Then he told her, essentially, this is what happens to people who talk. Think about that for a second. Jean was just a kid. 14, maybe 15 years old. Already being abused by someone she was supposed to trust. And now he's showing her a corpse to keep her quiet. In 1994, Jean and another survivor named Teresa Lancaster filed a lawsuit against Maskell and the Archdiocese of Baltimore. They wanted justice. They wanted someone to finally acknowledge what had happened to them. The case was dismissed. Statute of limitations. Too much time had passed, the court said. Never mind that these women were children when they were abused. Never mind that the trauma was so severe their minds literally blocked it out for decades. None of that mattered. Father Joseph Maskell was never charged with anything. He was quietly moved from parish to parish, the Catholic Church's favorite solution to the priest problem, and eventually he left Maryland altogether. He died in 2001, free as a bird, having never spent a single day in jail. And the story might have ended there too. Just another case of the Church protecting its own while survivors suffered in silence. But some people don't give up that easily. This takes us to Gemma Hoskins and Abby Schaub. Both women were former students at Archbishop Keough. They remembered Sister Cathy. They remembered how kind she was, how much she cared about her students. And when they heard about Jean Wehner's allegations, when they learned that Sister Cathy might have been murdered because she knew about the abuse, something clicked. They couldn't let this go. In 2013, Gemma and Abby created a Facebook group called Justice for Cathy Cesnik and Joyce Malecki. They started doing their own investigation, interviewing former students, digging through old records, connecting dots that law enforcement had either missed or ignored. And people started coming forward. More survivors. More stories of abuse. More pieces of a horrifying puzzle that had been hidden for decades. Their work caught the attention of documentary filmmakers, and in 2017, Netflix released The Keepers, a 7-part series that brought the case of Sister Cathy Cesnik to a global audience. The documentary was devastating. Survivor after survivor came forward with stories of abuse at the hands of Father Maskell. They described a systematic pattern of predation that went on for years. And they talked about how the Church knew, had to have known, and did nothing. But The Keepers didn't just expose Maskell. It exposed an entire system of corruption. The documentary revealed that Maskell had connections to local law enforcement. That evidence might have been deliberately buried. That powerful people had a vested interest in making sure this story never came to light. One of the most disturbing revelations? Maskell allegedly took pictures of the girls he abused and possibly shared them. This wasn't just abuse. This was organized, calculated, and protected from the highest levels. After The Keepers aired, the case exploded. Media coverage, renewed police interest, more survivors coming forward. People were angry. People wanted answers. And finally, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, someone would be held accountable. Back to the story, the priest who was in a relationship with Sister Cathy? The one who led the search efforts when she disappeared? For decades, Koob was treated as a grieving boyfriend. Sure, it was complicated, two people in religious orders having a secret relationship, but the narrative was basically that he loved her and was devastated by her death. But in 2023 that narrative started to crack. The Maryland Attorney General released a massive report on sexual abuse within the Archdiocese of Baltimore. It was the result of a 4-year investigation, and it was damning. Over 150 clergy members were named as perpetrators or involved in cover-ups. More than 600 children had been abused over several decades. Father Maskell's name wasn't directly in the report. He was already dead and had been previously identified in other investigations. But there was something interesting, a reference to a Jesuit intern who had been accused of abuse. People started digging, and they figured out that the Jesuit intern was Jerry Koob. 2 women came forward with allegations that Koob had sexually abused them when they were students at Keio. They said they'd stayed silent for decades, shame, fear, not wanting to believe it about someone they trusted. But after watching The Keepers, after seeing other survivors speak out, they decided it was time. Suddenly, people started looking at Koob differently. He'd been close to both Sister Cathy and Maskell. He knew what was happening at that school. So the question became, what exactly did he know? And was he just aware of the abuse, or was he participating in it? There's something else. After Cathy's death, Koob left the priesthood in 1979. He got married, became a Methodist minister, moved to New Jersey, raised a family. From the outside it looked like he'd moved on, built a new life. But how do you move on from something like this? If you were innocent, if the woman you loved was murdered possibly because she was about to expose abuse at your school, would you just quietly leave and never look back? Or would you spend the rest of your life fighting for justice? Koob did neither. He just left. Now, to be clear, Jerry Koob has denied these allegations. He's never been charged with anything. But the timing is suspicious. The silence is suspicious. And the fact that these accusations are coming from multiple sources, decades apart, makes them hard to dismiss. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. This case isn't just about 1 or 2 bad priests. It's about institutional failure at every level. The Catholic Church knew about Maskell. They had to. Multiple complaints were filed over the years. But instead of removing him, instead of calling the police, they just moved him around. Protected him. Gave him access to more children. The Baltimore Police Department? They've been accused of bungling the investigation from day one. Some former students claimed that Maskell had connections within the department, that he was protected by people in law enforcement. Whether that's true or not, the fact remains that this case went cold awfully fast for such a high-profile murder. And then there's the Archdiocese itself. For decades they fought survivors in court. Used technicalities like statute of limitations to avoid accountability. Sealed records. Refused to release information that could have helped solve Sister Cathy's murder. It took until 2023, 54 years after Sister Cathy's death, for Maryland to pass the Child Victims Act, which eliminated the statute of limitations for child sexual abuse cases. That means survivors like Jean Weiner finally have legal standing to pursue justice. But here's the thing that really gets me. Sister Cathy probably died because she was about to expose all of this. Multiple people have suggested that she knew about the abuse. That students had confided in her. That she was planning to go to the police or the Archdiocese. And someone couldn't let that happen. So they killed her. Beat her to death and dumped her body like garbage. And then an entire system of powerful people made sure that no one was ever held accountable. So where does this leave us? As of today, Sister Cathy Cesnik's murder remains officially unsolved. No one has ever been arrested. No one has ever been charged. But the investigation is still active. The Baltimore police have said they're still pursuing leads. And with the new allegations against Jerry Koob, with the Maryland Attorney General's report, with survivors continuing to come forward, there's hope that maybe finally someone will be held accountable. Gemma Hoskins and Abby Schaub are still fighting. Jean Weiner is still speaking out. And dozens of other survivors are finally being heard after decades of silence. This case matters. Not just because Sister Cathy deserves justice, though she absolutely does, but because it represents something bigger. It's about every survivor of abuse who wasn't believed. Every person who tried to speak up and was silenced. Every institution that chose to protect its reputation over protecting children. And maybe, just maybe, that's starting to change. If you want to learn more about this case, I highly recommend watching The Keepers on Netflix. It's difficult to watch, but it's important. And if you're a survivor of abuse, please know that it's never too late to speak up. There are resources available, people who will believe you, and a growing movement of people fighting to make sure that what happened at Archbishop Keough never happens again. Thanks for watching. If this story affected you, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into unsolved cases, and let me know in the comments what case you want me to cover next.